of the ANAP Foundation and the president and founder of ANAP Foundation, Chief Atiku. Peterside, thanks so much for coming tonight.
Mr. You don't Peterside. I'm not the chief.
Someone will call you chief.
No, I'm not the chief.
And maybe because you look like one.
Back in Rivers State, they will find me if I make a false claim.
Mr. Peterside, thank you so much for coming. All right, I'd like to look at what happened because your organization and NOI poll, you conducted presidential poll in 2011, in 2015, and 2019. And let me just show Nigerians what the outcome of those polls were. In 2011, ANAP and NOI, the result of the polls showed that Goodluck Jonathan eventually could win the election when people were asked who they will vote for. 53% says that he will win the April presidential election, and there was a performance appraisal of 68% on the then president Goodluck Jonathan, and he emerged the winner of that election. In 2015, it does look different, and the incumbent losing in that poll was something that was strange to a lot of people. But eventually, the poll looked like it was with about 2% point lead, 32% of Muhammadu Buhari of the APC at the time, emerging after 4 times becoming Nigeria's president, which the poll predicted, which happened, Mr. Peterside, and 30% of the incumbent, which was a very tough chew for a lot of people who didn't understand how the science played out. In 2019, yet again, like the words of a prophet, it looked so much like ANAP and NOI poll result was proven right. With the poll, showed that about a third of the votes were going to go for Muhammadu Buhari, and a quarter of that will go for Atiku Abubakar, which eventually, the outcome showed that Muhammadu Buhari of the APC emerged winner, winning a return to the presidency. Mr. Peterside, now we have the second of the 2023 presidential poll with us. You released one in September.
Yes.
Give us an understanding of what to expect in this new one.
I think this new one, the reason for doing the second poll was that the first one in mid-September was like a baseline. Because also this particular election is unique because of the long time interval between primaries and the actual voting. So the result was that we thought we have to do a series of polls. The very first one was the baseline poll. A few weeks after campaigns began, we did the poll. The intention was to do subsequent polls. So this next one is for December. And we're hoping to do another one January or end January. So then you begin to see a trend. Has anything changed between December and September? In politics, they talk about who has momentum.
Absolutely.
or who is losing ground.
Yeah.
So this poll, using the same methods as were used in September, gives you a chance to measure how each person is doing in December vis-a-vis where they were in September, and also how their colleagues are doing.
And by the way, between September and December, a lot of things have happened. Most of them had not gone into campaigns as at that time in September. But now they have been able to speak to Nigerians. So give us an understanding now. Things, has anything really changed? Perhaps we should begin with each of the candidates and their region and how they stand in their region. Is that okay to begin with that?
In their zone.
In their zones, right?
Right. When you say region, you're like an old
Absolutely,
man
yeah.
from the 60s.
Absolutely.
In their geopolitical
zone. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I think we should begin with Mr. Rabi Kwankwaso. Is that fair?
You can begin with anybody. Yeah.
Absolutely. So if you look at Rabi Kwankwaso, who is from Kano State, and if you look at in the northwest zone, the poll result is telling us that 6% with a question saying, suppose the presidential election is being conducted today, who are you likely to vote for? Mr. Kwankwaso of the NNPP, 6% of affirmation from his zone.
That's from the whole zone.
From the whole zone.
Not Kano.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
no, I'm just giving a background. It's from Kano State.
It's a large zone.
Kano is from the northwest zone.
Yeah.
Is there any reason that is performed in this manner in his own zone?
Well, I wouldn't know. All we do is ask people, and I should mention that the instrument that is used is mobile phones. Mobile phones give you the best possible penetration in Nigeria. Years ago, we tried using field workers. Let me tell you, the problem with using field workers is that there are parts of Nigeria today. Let me ask you a question, Sharon. Whose son do you want to send into parts of Nigeria to go and do a poll for you? What happens if he gets killed? Do you want that responsibility? So we changed some years ago to using the telephone, the mobile phone, also because of increased mobile phone penetration. I stress mobile phone, not anything involving data. It's not an online poll. Mobile phone is the one that has the most penetration. So you can call people once they have a mobile phone, if you choose them randomly and ask them questions, and they will answer. And that was done by NOI polls in the same way they've done previous ones.
All right, let's look at Mr. Atiku Abubakar. And he is from Adamawa State and in the northeast region. And the poll result is showing that Mr. Atiku Abubakar, at the moment, when people ask, the question was posed, suppose the presidential election is being conducted today, who are you likely to vote for? In the northeast region, 23% said that will vote for Atiku Abubakar.
Yes, but that's not the complete story. All the other candidates got less than him. And more importantly, which I think we should not emphasize everywhere, there is a large percentage of people that are still undecided. And that is true even in the northeast zone. I think our poll showed also that about 38% of the people say they're undecided. And then we also have a second category, which is important. About 14% refuse to disclose who they will vote for. Now that has always been there, regular. Not everybody wants you to invade their privacy. They'll tell you, look, I'm going to vote, but I won't tell you, Shehu, who I'm going to vote for. So we record that percentage, because even that percentage tells a story, because it fluctuates from zone to zone. Sometimes it's a very high figure of people refusing. And then you wonder why. But historically, we have seen some trends and some explanations as to why people in a particular area may be afraid to divulge who they will vote for. And usually it's because they're worried, or there's a perception of possibility of voter intimidation. I said perception because it can be real or imagined. The important thing is that if I ask you a question and you are afraid that you think I'm going to record the phone call, I have your phone number, and you will be identified as voting for or against somebody, and because you're afraid, you won't answer. It doesn't matter whether or not I plan to intimidate you. If you are worried about intimidation, you have the right to say, listen, I'm going to vote, but I won't disclose. After all, the law says you're allowed to vote in secret ballots. So opinion polls are only based on those who respond. Those who say they're undecided and those who refuse, we track those numbers as well.
I mean, there are those who have refused to answer, and those who have they're undecided.
Who they're undecided, so, they will decide later.
So if you look at the undecided numbers, in the North Central, we have about 35%. In the Northeast, about 38%. In the Northwest, 32%. Southeast, 25%. South-South, 26%. And the Southwest, 20%. Is there any explanation where we have higher percentage of undecided voters within the northern region of the country?
You know, here, I'm the first person to tell you our science is about numbers. Now we're going into conjecture, but I can tell you, I can make a guess. Sometimes people know who they will not vote for if there are 4 candidates, but they may be confused between 2 or between 3. It is possible that when you give people in the Northwest, let's, for argument's sake, those of them who think religion should be a factor, and by the way, that too we measured. Roughly 15% of people that we polled said they thought religion was important to them. So let's imagine somebody thinks the most important thing is religion. If you give him a choice of 3 Muslims, he might initially be undecided. Because they say, give me more time, let me hear them out, and so on. That is if he's concerned about only religion. But interestingly, I don't know whether you think that figure is high. Only 15% of the voters told us that religion for them is a factor. 10% told us ethnicity is a factor. But let me just tell you one thing. That 15% is high. Think about it. If in this presidential election there are 40 million votes cast, if 15% tell you For them, religion is the basis of their decision. And there's 6 million votes given to some people or some person on the basis of religion. So it's an important, it sounds small, 15%,
yeah. but in the actual
6
number,
6 million votes is a lot.
It's a lot.
Out of 40.
Anyone who takes 6 million votes, we know that it's carried a lot.
So it's a factor.
Yeah. So let's look at what Mr. Bola Tinubu, the candidate of the APC, in terms of the zona acceptance in the poll in the Southwest. This is what he stands. This is where he stands. 22%.
Again, it's in relation to his competitors. We will get to the details later, but the person who is second is below him, running a good second, and then the rest are further behind. And then, I think if you notice, the Southwest has a very high percentage of those who refuse to disclose. I believe it was as high as 38%.
Yeah, 38%.
38%. Now, that is one of the highest we've ever come across. And I said earlier that usually people refuse where they think that there's the perception or the possibility of voter intimidation. And when that is a very high percentage, who can they be afraid of? Usually people are afraid of those who they think have authority, those who they think are in the position to monitor them, those who call the shots. So even in 2015, when many people were refusing to disclose who they will vote for, my conclusion was that, hey, if you're an incumbent, perhaps they don't want to disclose that they're against you, but perhaps they're plunging for the challenger. But that's all conjecture. The important thing to note is that there's a high percentage, and between September and December, the figure rose. So it was not 38% in September. It was 25%. So instead of coming down, it increased to 38%, saying they will not disclose. Meanwhile, those who are undecided reduced in the Southwest from 35% to 20%.
Interesting. So let's look at the fourth man, which is Peter Obi of the Labour Party, and how he stands based on the poll in the Southeast region zone where he is from, 50% as against all his other competitors in the race, Mr. Peter side.
Yeah, again, that 50% compared to where he was in September. September was 68%.
So there's a drop.
There's a drop. Interestingly, that drop is not translating into phenomenal gain for his competitors. The bulk of it is going to people who now refuse to disclose. So back in September, only 11% refused to disclose in the Southeast. Now, I don't know who's intimidating them, but all of a sudden it has jumped up to 23%. So that 12% that
refusal to speak could be linked majorly to intimidation.
Well, it's a theory, but it's people have looked at it in the past and said, when you follow the patterns, it appears to make sense. First of all, in parts of the Southeast, people are even afraid to confirm that they want to vote because some people are telling them you must not vote. Yeah. So they can just opt out of your opinion poll immediately.
So I think it's safe for us to give a holistic picture now that we've looked at the zona standing of each of these four candidates against their other opponent. Is there a reason in the first place where you chose these four?
No, sorry.
Nigerians in this survey to know what their decisions will be. And the question was, should the election be conducted today, who would they be voting for? And some of them have responded, and those figures are some of the figures that we have brought to you. There was one that was conducted in September this year, and another one in December. I guess there will be another one before the election, isn't it? Okay, fantastic. Maybe the third one. But if you look at this one, if you don't have your permanent voter cards, Mr. Peter side, and it's good to also help to sensitize Nigerians that, look, this might be interesting to discuss, but also the fact remains that the election is baseless when people do not participate, isn't it?
Oh, definitely. And voter turnout matters. And if it varies by zone, it also affects the result. And that's why, but this year, I can tell you that our feedback is that the appetite for this election is high all over the country. 8 out of 10 voters are saying that this time they're going to vote.
So if you compare to the last three, you've done back-to-back now, 4 election cycle. You have polled for presidential election cycle from 2011 to 2015 to 2019 and this one. Compared to every other election cycle, which of the appetite do you think is higher?
This one is the highest, and I think it's for a variety of reasons. With due respect to President Buhari, many people had no interest in the 2015 election. They didn't believe any result would be declared except that he was the winner. So for them, they were lukewarm. Many people said they wouldn't even bother voting because they didn't think that there would be a free and fair election in 2019. 2015, there was a high interest level because people believed there would be a proper election. I'm not, again, this is just based on feedback and what we are told by voters. Now, this 2023, President Buhari is leaving, so they know there will be a new president. So therefore, the excitement level is high as to who will be a new president. One other feature that we've not had since 2011. Since 2011, 2015, 2019, there were only there were two really serious candidates. This one, there are at least 3 or 4. So the result is that when we're talking about geopolitical zones, each of the top 4 candidates from a different zone, so they can generate local interest. Also, what we have to remember about the presidential election is that, let's go back to 2019. With due respect, President Buhari is Fulani. Atiku Abubakar is Fulani. Some people told us in 2019, 2 Fulanis are running for an election. I don't really care between who wins. It doesn't concern me. I'm going to go to my farm. Those are people in some other zones. This election is a bit different. Everybody believes he has, reason stake.
Somehow.
Perhaps also the interest level is driven by the fact that I think some things have gone so bad. The economy, security, poverty, all that stuff. The things that should be low are high, like inflation. And the things that you want to reduce, like poverty, are on the increase. So there's so much at stake now that. And there's also been a campaign by various people to get the youths to get interested in the elections. And with due respect, I think all the numbers show that the appetite and the interest by the youths in this election is very high.
Interesting. Are you able to capture more people who have their permanent voter card?
Yes.
Because a lot of people don't have their permanent voter cards. But
this polling is based on people who are able to vote.
Are you able to spread it across the city and the interior part of the country?
I don't have those numbers with me, but we have the figure across geopolitical zones in terms of those who are registered to vote, the percentage. And it's quite high in all the 6 zones. Of course, there will always be highest somewhere and the lowest somewhere. And if you want, we can go to that level of detail. I can tell you immediately, figures are in front of me. The zone that has the highest percentage of those with voters' cards is the Northeast, 90% of the voters' cards. Southwest, very close, 89%. South, 88%. So that's all the same. Then the 3 zones with the lower percentage, North Central, 87%, Northwest, 86%, and South is 84%. Well, all of them are in the 80s and early 90s.
I know a lot of Nigerians.
Sorry, all of them are in the 80s, one in the 90s.
Oh, yeah. So a lot of Nigerians are itching more to know what the figures are saying. So we gave you an understanding of the general outlook of the December poll. Let's now do some comparison and we'll go by zones now. In the Northeast zone, so you will see the blue is the September 2022 poll, and the red is in the December 2022 poll. And you will see how the 4 candidates are faring based on how they fell, how they went up, and the differences.
Sure. These are just translating those figures into bar charts. But if there's anything that's a bit interesting is that the undecided voters, instead of coming down, was going up. So sometimes if a candidate lost ground, it can be because somebody who said they will vote for him before is now undecided. The person that has gained little ground, but let's face it, if you start off from a very, very low base, you can gain some ground. P2B seems to have gained some little ground in the Northeast. But it was on a very low figure before. And even this figure is still well below 10%.
So it shows that Bola Ahmed Tinubu and Atiku Abubakar are doing very well from the last time. So you see,
no, the blue one is September.
Okay, actually, now
the blue one is September.
In fact, they've
little,
dipped, yeah.
But conversely, undecided has gone up.
Yes, undecided voters.
But let's be careful. That can be assuming two of them were popular, and people are deciding who do I vote for between them. Some people can switch from saying I want this or the other to undecided for now because they're confused, but they're still going to vote for one of the two of them.
Absolutely.
So that it does not mean that they've necessarily lost ground.
Because the two of them are actually a bit higher compared to the other.
Oh, definitely.
Peter Obi and Kwankwaso in the Northeast.
Don't even say a bit higher. Atiku is way above everybody in the Northeast.
Yeah. And perhaps because of the running mate of Bola Tinubu in the Northeast, who is also from the Northeast region of the country.
Probably helped him
in
as
the realm
well.
of permutation.
Sure.
Yeah. So let's go to the Northwest region. There's a matter, of course, which I also wanted to point at, because we've looked at youth, we've looked at how this spread is. We also need to look at how the gender, the spread of the and how they perform. I'll come to that in a moment. But look at the Northwest region of the country and how the votes, the poll has gone. It does look to me that Mr. Kwankwaso, like we talked about earlier, this is his performance lower than the likes of Bola Tinubu and Atiku Abubakar. In fact, compared to Peter Obi, he's even performing lower than that.
Yeah, but I think it's a concentration in a part of the Northwest, and he's not doing that well elsewhere in the Northwest. But again, he could be a big beneficiary from the undecided. It's possible. He could be a big beneficiary from the undecided.
And which is also high.
Which is very high.
Very, very high.
So that it could be people are looking at him and saying, should I vote for him or should I stick to the others? And they could be thinking about whether to back him or not. But please, this is what they tell us, or what they tell NOI polls.
Absolutely.
Let me just correct your sentence. The poll is done by NOI polls.
Yeah.
We only commission it in the sense that we pay them to go and do a poll. I should also mention that, because people have asked before, although you didn't ask me now, what is the size of the poll? Historically, we have been following the Gallup methodology in the US and so on. They use 1,000, they poll 1,000 people randomly. But this particular, in September, we did 1,000. This time in December, we actually did three things. We polled for 1,000, polled for 2,000, polled for 3,000 to see whether anything was going to change. And it did not change significantly, which is the logic behind, which is the logic behind why people say that if your random sampling is actually very random, you may find that once you get a particular critical minimum size of sample, if you like, keep on increasing it. So each time you get people at random in Nigeria, some will tell you who they like, some they don't like.
Yeah. So let's look at the North Central region. So there's one constant in those zones, and that is the undecided voters and those who are refusing. This is still very high, and we're just hoping that turnout will be reasonable at the eventual election. But look at what Peter Obi has done here. Peter Obi has really done remarkably well compared to what he did in the September poll.
Yes, and conversely, Bola Ahmed Tinubu has shrunk. I mean, Atiku Abubakar is roughly where he was.
That's about, yeah.
And Kwankwaso, but the big difference is that Bola Ahmed Tinubu seems to have lost ground in the North Central. Peter Obi seems to have gained ground. But also look at the refused. Those who refused to tell us has gone up.
Have gone up.
Yeah. So again, you can start theorizing who is going to be a beneficiary from the refused, who will be a beneficiary from the undecided.
Yeah, which is still very high.
Still
and
very,
so when that
high.
happens in election, we've seen that happen in the United States, where there was a shocker, and in the Trump and in the Biden election, undecided voters did a lot of work in determining the eventual winner of the election, because it was difficult for people to determine where they were standing. So let's look at the Southeast region. And so this, in fact, gives us a very different dynamics entirely to what we have seen in the northern part of the country. So we see Peter Obi dropped, actually.
Yes,
yeah,
a sharp drop.
A sharp one. And for some reason, Bola Tinubu had gained some grounds in the Southeast.
But again, it's again, yeah. He gained some ground, and then the undecided...
Kwankwaso is
non-existent.
is almost non-existent here. So that's the southeast. So let's look at the southwest. All right. This is the home ground of Bola Tinubu, and it seems to have gained traction here. Peter Obi too has done the same. And here you see that the undecided had gone down.
Undecided has gone down, but the refused has jumped up.
Yeah.
Yes.
So for some reason, Atiku Abubakar has not really moved so much compared to September and December.
He has remained at his 4% in the southwest.
Now, if you look at the south, okay, again, it looks that Bola Tinubu has also done, compared to September, there seems to be a jump. Peter Obi seems to have stayed almost at the same level, and Atiku Abubakar seems to have dropped in the south.
Yes, I think, the person who has gained significantly in the south is Bola Tinubu. Peter Obi has stayed flat, and the undecided and the refused have not changed that much.
Yeah. All right. So now let's look at the percentage of voters across Nigeria based on the 4 candidates. So putting all of the zones together, this is what we get here right now. Mr.
Yes.
Peter Side.
Yeah, those numbers, you have them, and they'll be on the website in the next half an hour, the latest. It will be, the truth is that if you look at these numbers, if you talk about momentum, nobody has really gained phenomenal traction. Nothing has really changed that much. What has, conversely, look at the refused. Those who refuse to tell you is what has picked up. And that could be, you said it for a variety of reasons, but those who are telling you they will vote for Peter Obi increase slightly. When I say increase slightly, let's put things in perspective. 21% to 23%, that's 2%.
2%.
Bola Tinubu, 13%, stayed the same. Mm-hmm. Atiku Abubakar was 13% down to 10%, lost 3%. So nobody has gained or lost more than 2-3%. Yeah.
Not really drastic.
I don't know whether that's good news or bad news for all the campaign activity, but it's as if nothing has happened to fundamentally shake, or nobody has
There's no
collapsed.
real shift.
No significant shift. No significant shift.
There will be a third one, isn't it?
Oh, definitely. And there could be a fourth as well, but definitely there will be a third.
Okay.
By God's grace.
We'll be looking forward to that, and we're monitoring as the performances of the candidate. Maybe at some point we might see an emergence of a fifth in the race. But that is in the realm of conjectures also. But let's see how this.
I will disappoint you, because our press release says we are going to henceforth concentrate on these four. Let me tell you why. Mm-hmm. The very first poll was a bit painful, because when there are so many candidates, you're asking people who they're going to vote for. You have to be taking all the information and all that, compiling for 16 people, all that. Eventually, we just decided that, hey, the trends are clear that these are the top 4. Yeah. But of course, if something phenomenal happens, it will come out, and we'll get to know, hopefully. Yeah. So please, if you get the impression between now and January that the fifth candidate that's emerged that's going to trump these 4, give me a call.
I will, definitely. I have your first and second line, so I will definitely do that. But one thing that is also significant here, Mr. Peter Side, is the fact that in all of these, there are movements. And some people have had their permutation that January is going to be the real puff for the battling of all of these candidates, and a lot of activities will happen. Perhaps we see the more engagement with the candidates, and them being able to stand side by side to be able to speak to the issues and their agenda.
Yeah, you see, there's a myth that the more you're visible or the more you're out there, the more you're working hard, and so the more votes you get. But if you come out and you're making mistakes and you're fumbling, and people are having a doubt about you and your ability, the more they see you actually, the more they may lose faith in you. And the important thing is that a figure that came out in a poll, and I was surprised because we added it as well, asking people whether they want to see the candidates come out and debate and engage each other. Because all these undecideds, what are you waiting for? You want them to come and engage and things like that. 71% of the respondents, 71% of the respondents said they want to see the candidates engaging defending their policies and so on.
On
So if you're if people say they want to see you engage, they want to see you talking, and you're going to hiding, you're probably hurting yourself.
Yeah.
That's why I said that there's no need to fight with anybody to come out and talk. Let the people run away and go and hide.
Absolutely.
It should be a free world.
But
the only comment I made was that I don't think it's right for you to have a presidential debate. You bring up presidential candidates, and you tell people you're going to have a presidential debate, and then you bring a non-presidential candidate to come and take part.
Absolutely.
I think that's wrong. If you don't want to take part, then leave the scene and let those who want to take part take part.
Yeah, the final thing I'd like you to mention, which is the gender issue. You just have about 20 seconds for that.
Yeah, I think the women are the ones that are largely undecided. I've never understood why. But perhaps if you ask your wife when you get home or ask your mother, she can tell you. So it's like the men have made up their minds more, and the women are very undecided. Perhaps because there's no woman in the race. And they're looking at all these men and thinking, these guys can't be trusted.